Welcome to the Uncontested Podcast, talking Oklahoma City Thunder basketball and the wider NBA.
Sam Presti said, lower the hatch, load up the cannon, and get the tank out rolling.
Catch new episodes after each Thunder game and every Sunday night.
This is a house of learning doctors.
Follow the Uncontested on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube to catch new content as it drops.
I mean, a cat and a dog connected together?
This is Lou Dort. You're listening to the Uncontested.
What is up? Welcome to the Uncontested Podcast, coming to you live Sunday, September 26th on YouTube, Twitter, and Facebook. We are a proud partner of the Blue Wire Podcast Network and the official podcast of SI Thunder. I'm your host for the evening, Jacob Niffen. I've got Nick Crane with me tonight.
It is here. We've waited a long time for some content.
Hey,
it is finally here.
We don't have to pull stuff straight out of our butts anymore, boys. No more Thunder players as ice cream flavors. Paul.
At least
a good one.
Not until 20 games into the season when they're 1-19.
We've also got Taylor Peterson along tonight.
Media Day Eve. Thank goodness, because it was not a good weekend of football for your boy.
Rough time, huh?
I mean, OU and TU both pulled it off, but neither looked nearly as good as they should have. And then you have the Chiefs, and we just won't even get into that.
Did my Cardinals win today? I didn't.
They did by a lot. It was
like
31 to 14 or something like that.
I'm telling you, Super Bowl champ Arizona Cardinals guys.
3-0.
Nick, did your Cowboys win today?
They're
they
Monday
play
night.
Tomorrow. Monday game.
Okay, very good, very good. I saw. Didn't one of their players try to pay off a drug tester?
Yep.
Happens to the best of us.
If you're not cheating, you're not trying, right?
That is exactly what I said whenever I saw that.
It's going to be Kyrie walking in with a bunch of honey buns from his friend James Harden.
Oh, man. We are not going to talk about the Rolling Stone article on this podcast. No Kyrie Irving and Jonathan Isaac tonight, folks. But the gods have smiled upon us, as just before this podcast started, we had a Thunder... a little bit of Thunder transactions going on as the Thunder have waived Charlie Brown Jr. I think we all kind of saw that writing on the wall for a long time.
Yep.
And they have picked up a player off of waivers.
Taylor, who is that player?
I got it. Put me in, coach. Mamadi Diakite.
Hey, we only have to spell it out phonetically for Taylor for him to pronounce the name correctly. But fairly interesting, gentlemen. We've talked, one of the quote unquote talking points of this offseason was that the Thunder were just very shorthanded at the center position. Even though Diakite only 6'9", I believe, a very high level athlete who plays most of his time at the center position, albeit he has not played a lot of meaningful NBA basketball in his career. This is a place where he will get a chance to do that. Nick, any thoughts on this signing?
I think we all sat here for the last 4 months thinking, all right, which young random center is going to get a chance to come play in Oklahoma City and maybe flourish, because there's not much competition. And it only took 12 hours before media day, but that center has been signed.
I wonder if he will be there tomorrow.
I would imagine.
Fly him in.
I mean, doesn't he have to pass a physical and stuff though?
Yeah, but I would imagine he'd still be there.
Yeah,
there's a good chance he's already in Oklahoma City.
I don't know how the whole physical and stuff works whenever you claim a player off waivers versus a trade. I'm not sure on the process of that. But Taylor, you have any thoughts on this?
Well, so it was kind of funny. Keith Smith tweeted out that Diakite was going to be a free agent. He tweeted that out this morning. Was going to basically be picked up by a team, I think, today, once he cleared waivers. And so there was quite a few teams interested, I don't remember his exact tweet. I can see if I can find it. But it was kind of weird because I just had a feeling that maybe, here it is. Mamadi Diakite is set to clear waivers at 5 p.m. Eastern time today. As of yesterday, a handful of teams were weighing the possibility of claiming Diakite's contract off waivers. Something to keep an eye on today. If Diakite is claimed, 100,000 cap hit comes off the Bucks books. So good old
There you
Sam
go.
Presti
You're
doing
Can we just
pal.
agree? Let's get the nickname going now. Let's call him Mama.
Mama.
That's
Mama-
the new nickname.
Instead of
He-
Mama Mia, he's Mama Dia.
Mama
Mama.
Dia.
Mama
Mama.
Dia. Print
Mama.
the shirts now, damn it.
Oh, Mama.
Mama me. Yeah, there you go. He's the key to unlocking this this
Too
next
bad they
chapter of
traded
the
away
franchise.
Hamadou Diallo. We could have had Hami
Oh,
and Mommy.
I know. Well,
Mommy
actually,
and Mommy.
Justin and I watched him play in summer league. He played in Vegas just a couple months ago with the Bucks, and
How'd he
he was
look?
solid. I think he averaged like 10 points, 6 boards.
Okay.
But he's an athlete. Like, he is strong. He is athletic. I think
He's
he
Heck
got
can.
yes, he
finish
is.
lobs and stuff, right?
Well,
Say what?
let me just inform our listeners of some very important
Oh.
information regarding Diakite. Speaking of his athleticism, he was named second team All VIC in soccer in 2014 and 15, and he won back-to-back VIC high jump titles. We got a high flyer here in OKC.
There you go. As far as I understand his game, Nick, he's basically going to finish alley-oops for you. He's going to screen and roll hard.
Yep.
He's going to block shots, play defense, that type
He
of thing.
is a 6 inch shorter Moses Brown.
That's what I was just
That's a
about to say.
great-
You stole the words out of my mouth, you bastard.
That is a
I'm glad
great
we're on the
point.
same wavelength here.
Yep.
I think, Jacob, you mentioned this before we started recording, but he did play with Ty Jerome in that championship game for Virginia. He actually, I believe, was a 4-year player in college. But in the 2019 championship game, he contributed 9 points and 7 rebounds. So, yeah, he did play alongside Ty Jerome. Obviously, we'll have a familiar face here in OKC, so that's just something to note.
Yeah, I think he was a 2-way that got converted.
That
last
sounds
season?
right. That sounds correct. It's kind of interesting. They got Ty Jerome off that Virginia team. Now they've got Diakite off
Mhm.
that Virginia team. We know Sam Presti also likes those Kentucky teams.
Yep.
We know he likes those Gonzaga teams. Sam has a type.
Do we, completely switching gears here, do we think there's still a chance that Charlie Brown Jr. is at Media Day tomorrow and is on a camp deal?
I think there's a good chance of that happening.
Yeah.
Right?
I
They
think that as
waived him,
well.
but said, "Hey, come to camp. We'll pay you to come to camp and play." And
Yep.
that would not surprise me in the slightest.
Yep. Same
So
here.
here's an interesting little segment here from SB Nation's Milwaukee Bucks site, Brew Hoop. Pretty cool name. So why did Diakite end up on the outside looking in, and why now? Well, as our Ranking the Roster series illustrated, he's not very good. Well, that's unfair, but he's not NBA good, mostly because of his lack of size and strength at a position where size and strength are fairly important. So I think that kind of goes to what both of you were mentioning. 6'9", he's probably going to be expected to play mainly a center position for OKC, whether positionless or not. He's going to be undersized when it comes to some of the players he'll be defending. This is just another gamble on a younger player with upside on a team that can actually give him a little bit of playing time. But I don't expect anything major, particularly with some of the power forwards that we already have mentioned here during the offseason on this roster already.
Definitely. He's going to be a 6'9" center, and the Thunder are also going to have a 6'9" point guard, Josh Giddey. So
Yes.
Great point.
there you go.
Great point.
Speaking of all this, guys, Media Day is tomorrow. When people are listening to this podcast, presumably on Monday, Media Day will either be happening or already in the books. Our very own Nick Crane will be attending virtually for Media Day. Nick, if you had to choose like your top 3 players, because we've already heard from Presti, and we'll talk about that in a moment. But if you had to choose the top 3 guys you are looking forward to hearing from tomorrow and talking to tomorrow, who are those 3 guys?
I'll start with who I'm least excited for, and it's going to shock you.
Okay.
Poku.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, wow. Okay.
He
Why?
gives, I think
That's who I
there's
was
a,
going to guess just
think
because of
there's
how you said that.
a bit of a language barrier. He doesn't give good answers. Like, it's usually short, nothing, like kind of airy answers, you know?
Okay. That's
I'm
fair.
looking forward to Giddey, kind of hearing how he's prepared for the season without having summer league. Trey Mann, another rookie. I just am fascinated by his game, and I think he's got a lot of boom or bust. He's either going to end up being a really, 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 really good scorer or someone that gets buried in the depth chart behind Ty Jerome and Teo. Third, Lou Dort. Haven't
Okay.
heard from that man in a while. He always gives pretty good answers. Taking on another leadership role this year, you know, without some of these vets on the roster like they've had in the past. I think that's the biggest difference between the last couple seasons and this season, like Derek Favors, sure, he's a veteran, but he's not an Al Horford leader. He's not a Chris Paul leader. Some of these young guys are legitimately going to have to be the voices in the locker room.
Who do you think that's going to be besides Dort? I mean, is it Shea?
I mean, Shea for sure.
100%.
I think it definitely is Shea. I'm interested. A name that you didn't say that I thought there was a chance maybe you would have said that you were looking forward to. So now I'm going to ask on a scale of 1 to 10, how much are you looking forward to hearing from Darius Bazley?
He's really hit and miss in a lot of his interviews. Like,
yeah,
the one-on-ones.
I remember this time last year. Well, not this time last year. This time last year we were in the playoffs. Media day last year in God, what was that? December, right?
People were saying he sounded like he didn't want to be there.
Yeah, he was like very like
standoffish,
sassy, aggressive.
Well, he got asked some questions that I don't think were meant to be taken the way they were. Just kind of asked about like trades and the business behind it, and I think he thought he was being asked to like some kind of question that would like get him in trouble or get him to say something, and it wasn't the case at all. And I think
like he was being baited.
And that was one of his first questions he got, and I think that kind of set the tone, because there's been other, like I've interviewed him. He's been in plenty of other group interviews, and he's given good answers. This may have been a bad day. I don't know. His buddy Chris Paul just got traded.
Yeah, very true. So anything else we're looking forward to at Media Day? Maybe something that we'll learn, something that'll be asked. Maybe something that we have to read between the lines, something visually. Like I'm thinking, does Poku look like physically larger this season than he did last season? Which is kind of a hard question.
Just like doing curls while answering questions.
That's kind of hard because like nobody was super close, like physically to Poku last year. So we're like operating off of how we saw him look on television. And I mean, Nick, you can attest to this. Whenever I went to Thunder practice and saw Chris Paul and Billy Donovan up close, physically they look way different than they do watching them on television. Like, my man Billy Donovan needs a bra because his pecs are so damn big. My man does chest day every day. It was insane. Chris Paul is like super thin, which it doesn't look that way on TV. So I'm interested. Do we see physically something different in Aleksej Pokusevski? What else are you guys looking forward to either seeing or hearing from guys at Media Day tomorrow?
Just kind of to mention a point, I don't know how excited I am about this presser because it's probably going to be, for lack of a better term, a lot of Presty talk. But Derek Favors, just because you guys mentioned a veteran, or sorry, yes, veterans, but also like a leadership presence in the locker room. I kind of imagine Derek Favors being one of those guys who kind of lets like Shea, kind of hands off, lets Shea and Dort lead, right? Maybe Bazley, I don't know, lead. Kenrich take that leadership role, but comes in and offers advice when needed. So I'm kind of curious to see how his, I expect it to be nothing more than just professional. I'm just here to help these young guys, a lot of talent on it, very similar to Al Horford's media availability, right? And then the other one, obviously, is just the most obvious one that we haven't talked about yet, and Shea being the de facto leader of this team. What does his preseason interview look like? I think back to, and we'll get into this, some of the comments that Presty made compared to what Lethal Shooter, one of the trainers, obviously a very infamous NBA trainer that Shea worked out with this summer. He mentioned some of Shea's goals this season, one of them being trying to make the playoffs and the play-in. And so, like, how does Shea's tone differ? I think from what we heard from Presty, is Shea a little more aggressive, a little more confident in his team this season?
Yeah. What is the alignment like as far as just from availability? Right. Nick, what all are you looking forward to?
I probably should know this, but I actually don't know if Vit Krejci speaks English. Never actually heard him in an interview speaking English.
Good point. But his this doesn't necessarily answer your question, but just like his Instagram that he posted about his injury here a couple days back, it was in English. Granted, that doesn't. But yeah, that's a good point because it would be fun to hear from him.
Yeah, he is like you mentioned a year ago. Was it yesterday?
Yesterday or 2 days ago.
Suffering that ACL injury, and he's getting closer to being back.
I'm excited to watch him, even if it's with the blue.
Yeah, I think he'll be fun to watch. Especially, he's just an unknown guy, and those guys are always the most fun. No, I think there's going to be a lot of interesting comments. I don't think it'll be one of those media days like maybe we'll see in Brooklyn or Orlando or Golden State, where it's like
Or Philadelphia.
at Philadelphia, everyone's tuning in, and there's like some real questions going to be asked that could stir up some things. But it's Oklahoma City.
It'll be tame.
These guys likely have been prepped with media etiquette, what to say, what not to say. It's going to be very, very, very cut and dry answers.
Yeah, very ho-hum. Yeah.
Yep.
Man, what I would do to be in on that Brooklyn media availability whenever they ask about Kyrie in that Rolling Stone article. My Lord, that's
okay. Just really quick.
We all know that New York media, there's no punches being pulled.
No,
like they
not at
ain't
all.
playing games up there.
So that's my question for both of you. Does Kyrie show up? He didn't show up last year for
He's
reference.
been, in the past, he's been fined quite a bit for missing media stuff.
I wouldn't be
shocked.
surprised if, man, I would not be shocked at all if he misses. But if he does, in wake of that Rolling Stone article and kind of that controversy with the COVID vaccine, what a bad look, right?
Yeah.
Like you've got to like just stand up and like talk and like own your piece of it, right?
Yeah.
Like, oh man.
And it's like if you think strongly on any topic, like tomorrow is the platform to stand up there and give your 2 cents.
Exactly. Like the I'm going to be interested. I don't know how grueling Bay Area media is, but I can't wait to see kind of how Andrew Wiggins rolls with the punches tomorrow.
Yeah.
You know, it's going to be fascinating. Jonathan Isaac, how does he roll with the punches? Karl Anthony Towns, when he's asked about these players that refuse to get the vaccine, and he's been very vocal about it, especially with all the tragedy that his family has faced.
There's going to be another player that that it's not in this group right now we're talking about, that we find out pretty quickly tomorrow that they have a stance or they're in that.
Yeah,
too.
no, that's a good point too.
I wonder.
Very good point.
Yeah, I wonder in some of these more progressive markets where the media is very kind of cutthroat, if they just ask players straight up, "Hey,
Are you vaccinated?
are you vaccinated?"
100%.
You know,
I think the Rolling Stones, that article, I mentioned Ennis, and he talked about some. I mean, obviously he was very for it and had some really good tidbits in there. But he also mentioned that there were some of his teammates who are unvaccinated. I'm curious, who those players may be, and like to your point, Jacob, that would be a market. I think that the media would ask that.
Definitely.
Is it a progressive Jaylen Brown? Somebody of that. I don't know. I mean, I just I started speculating a little bit when I saw Ennis's comments.
Great. I'm glad Taylor is diving into conspiracy theory Twitter, speculating on people's vaccination status.
So Jaylen Brown, like this Instagram post, who follows this person who follows Kyrie. So if you connect the dots,
there you go.
There's going to be a real thing this year where unvaccinated players are going to be much tougher to trade. And like teams like the Oklahoma City Thunder, if they pushed that hard to get 100% of folks vaccinated, not saying that there was any pushback, but to get 100% people vaccinated, like maybe an Andrew Wiggins salary dump was something they would have been interested in. I don't think so anymore.
Yeah. Like,
great point.
I remember, and I've always wondered about this. I said we weren't going to go down this rabbit hole, and here we are halfway down the damn rabbit hole trying to catch the rabbit. Trey Mann did an interview at Summer League where he said he was limited on what he could do because he wasn't fully vaccinated yet.
Yep.
I don't know, and I don't want to speculate, but if I had to guess, I would guess that he got drafted by the Thunder that night, and they called him up and said, "Are you vaxxed? Go get your shot and fly down here to Oklahoma City." And I bet that's when he started his process. So I wouldn't be surprised if the Thunder pull a trade this year, that if it's for a non-vaccinated player, they require that player to get the vax as like part of the trade. That would not surprise me in the slightest.
Absolutely.
Speaking on all that, no, you're good. Let's move on. So we talked a little bit about Media Day. Nick, everyone can follow you on Twitter at Crane NBA to catch all the updates from Media Day and all the quotes and whatnot. One thing I'm also kind of interested in, which is so insignificant, it doesn't mean anything, but I'm assuming Gabriel Deck will have a translator because he cannot speak English. I wonder if that's a translator provided by the Thunder, and if that's just his translator for the entire time he's with OKC. Cool.
He had the same translator all of last year.
So I wonder if it's going to be the same
really
person, and if that's provided by the team. I think that's fascinating.
Yeah,
but I'm also lame and into that kind of stuff.
Yeah, right. I think about like his teammates, and yeah, I hope they can bring him in and help him.
Yeah. I
Well,
wonder if he's learned
really
any
cool.
English over the summer.
Yeah,
Been able to talk a little, at least some basketball English.
I don't think
Yeah.
he spent a minute in America outside
is
yeah,
of
he's
true.
what was
in the
required.
Olympics.
Yeah.
Which is pretty awesome.
As long as he's learned American swear words, I'm happy.
yeah,
Yeah.
so
all
he
he
can
needs
talk
to
trash
learn.
on the
Teo
court. That's all he
has.
needs.
Yeah. So, Nick, you are also part of Sam Presti's virtual media availability on Friday this past week. Can you tell us a little bit about what all Sam had to say? Any big takeaways you had? Anything significant? We already mentioned that he said the team is 100% vaccinated. They
Yep.
will have no limitations on what they can do. So that's good news. But
Yep.
what else?
If I had to kind of water it down to three main things that stuck out. One, Darius Baisley. We knew the front office loves him. They're going to be patient with him. Preston made a comment, he's entering year 3,
Yep.
just scratching the surface. And I think that is just kind of a cliche thing to say, but I truly think that's how they view Baisley, skipping college, the gap year, be patient with him, although it is a big year for him. So that was an interesting comment. I think that actually no one asked a question about Baisley that came like off the head. Like someone asked a question about young guys, and Baisley was someone that he brought up without being asked, which is why it stuck out more than some of the other things he said. Number 2, he says this every single time he talks. No shortcuts. Be patient. It's going to take a long time. AKA, don't expect to win games this year.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess the third thing that maybe stuck out the most, just the markets. I thought he had some fascinating quotes about, not every city can build a team the same way. And he once again doubled down on, we know we're not going to get big free agent names. We got to build through the draft and through player development and trades. And then even mentioned every team has luck somewhere along the way. He didn't mention any real examples, but things that came to my mind. Dallas getting Luka at 5, essentially trading 3 for 5 and all that stuff, or the Pistons getting Juan and getting K. Like there's things that happen, whether it's the lottery or the guy you draft or where you get them or whatever it might be. They said luck has to go your way, and at some point he expects something to go the Thunder's way. That hasn't happened yet, so it's interesting.
I've never seen anyone accomplish something that said it was an easy that said it was easy or done in one swoop. Anything you do that requires sustained success requires patience, resilience, selflessness. You can't really build teams the same way in every city.
Sounds like Sam Presti to me.
Yep.
History is there because it's happened already. It can be researched. If you look at it rationally, it can be very informative. That's a lot easier than trying to predict the future.
Maybe that's what I should tell my students in my history class. History is there because it's happened already. What a quote.
You just said a lot of things that meant the same thing, which makes me, we didn't mention the Ethan Strauss article on his Substack that he drops here about a week ago. But one tidbit he mentioned in there was how there's quite a few media members, national media members who have good relationships with Presti. When they extend that olive branch, he's willing to accept. He takes them to dinner. He'll sit down and talk with them for an hour, 2 hours. But what they all come away with is basically that Presti said a lot without saying anything at all, which is exactly what he did in this presser. He basically mentioned, look, I don't know what to tell you all. We aren't taking any shortcuts, just like Nick said. We're going through a rebuild. And I think the thing that stood out to me the most, he did let us in like with a little insight, I think, into how he's viewing this process, especially this season, saying that, blank slate, blank canvas, and we're just trying to set a baseline for what these players even are. Those players probably being the rookies they brought in, and any player not Lou or Shea, and also just evaluating and kind of seeing the jumps that Lou, Shea, Poku, Baisley have made. Once they see those jumps, once they see what they have with some of these younger players, he'll adjust the plan accordingly, right?
Mm-hmm.
But as of now, he's not willing to take any shortcuts, and it's just about throwing those guys out there and seeing what you have.
Exactly. I mean, he even mentioned as much whenever he talked about the buyout for Kemba Walker, right? Essentially, in non-Presti terms, the TLDR version. We want to let the young guys play, so we traded away the old guy. We cut him loose, right? And that is totally fair. So, any other thoughts from Presti's media availability, gentlemen?
Nope.
I think we're good. Quick programming note, since we're talking about media day and training camp, this coming week we will have a Thunder Blue-White scrimmage. I don't think it'll be open to the public because nothing has been said. In the past, they have streamed it on their social media sites, so
True.
fingers crossed that we get that. But this week, the Uncontested podcast goes on as normal. The Sunday live stream tonight, the Wednesday live stream on the 29th, the Sunday live stream again next Sunday on October 3rd. And then after that, gentlemen, it's time for some post-game podcasts.
Yes, finally.
The first Thunder preseason game comes against the Hornets on Monday, October 4th, a mere 8 days from now. We will have a post-game show right after that game. Then they don't have another preseason game until Sunday, October 10th. So after that preseason game is over, we will go live and do a preseason game breakdown plus our typical live stream. And then after that, we have a handful more preseason games, and then it's on to the regular season. So one more week of this kind of off-season schedule for us where we record Sunday and Wednesday nights. After that, it'll be Sunday nights and every post game. So make sure that you're subscribed to the Uncontested wherever you get your podcast, YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, TikTok, wherever. So that way you can get all of your OKC Thunder content. We are super excited.
I'll have some new highlights to add to the old TikTok. Get a little
There
more
we
active
go.
on there.
Hey, one of my favorite things of the year is coming up, the Uncontested Season Bets podcast.
Yes.
Speaking of, we got to pay out some bets this week.
We got them listed out. We talked about them this past week.
And
Did I win anything?
Yeah,
I think
you won
you're just
something.
paying.
You won something. I'm pretty.
Oh.
No, you weren't on the show last year. for
Then
the
how
bet.
did I have 3 things to give out?
I was gonna say he like
Because
owes you
you and
pizza
I
wings.
betted in the playoffs.
Oh,
You remember? We
Yes.
bet on the Suns Lakers series,
Yes.
and we bet on the Bucks.
Mhm.
So you owe me wings and a pizza.
Yeah. But the good thing is there's I think it's Little Caesars has a wings on a pizza
there we
now.
go. Ah.
Nick, will you be in? Will you
Two
be in
birds, one
OKC anytime
stone.
soon?
I don't know. Probably not opening night Thunder. One of the preseason games I'll come.
All right,
to.
let's link up.
'Kay.
And get dinner.
'Kay.
Sound
Down.
good?
Yeah.
There we go. There we go. Taylor, you can tag along too. I'll allow it.
Nah.
I mean, you owe us all Bobos, Jacob. So,
Yeah, well, you guys got to be here on a Saturday night. We'll make it happen.
oh, that's a good point. Bobos.
We
is
will
open
make it
every
happen
night.
for sure.
But-
So, all right, gentlemen. Well, per our Sunday tradition these past few weeks, and we're going to continue it on Wednesday this week as well.
cool.
Season preview series. We are done with the East. Thank God. Don't really like covering the Eastern Conference. And we are moving on to our Western Conference coverage this week, doing the Southwest Division. So, gentlemen, are you ready?
Sure am.
I will take that as a yes. We're going to start Southwest Division. Pretty fun division. We've got the Mavericks, the Rockets, the Grizzlies, the Pelicans, and the Spurs. I have some thoughts on all of these teams. I'm sure you gentlemen do as well. Alphabetical order. Let's start with the Dallas Mavericks, guys. Last season, they ended 42-30, fifth in the Western Conference. They had that 4-5 matchup against the Clippers and end up losing that series, even though Luka Doncic, hands down the best player in that series. Did that series go 6 or 7?
7.
It was 7.
I was like, yeah.
It was 7.
Yep,
Clippers
yep.
won game 7, 126-111. Dallas
Luka
won the
was doing that
first
on a
2.
bad ankle.
Yeah. Dallas won the first 2, and we thought it was over. You remember
Mhm.
that? So
Yes.
the Dallas Mavericks, 5th seed last season, did not have home court advantage, lost in 7. Nick, what all did Dallas do this offseason?
It didn't seem like they did a lot, but they did a couple things. Added some shooting and some defense. So they brought in Frank Ntilikina. They brought in Reggie Bullock. They brought in Sterling Brown. They re-signed Tim Hardaway Jr., which I think is an underrated signing. He was
Yep.
really, really good for them last year.
Did Lucas on the Supermax?
He did.
They flew. Remember, they flew out there to him.
Yep.
It was Dirk.
It was
and
during
Cuban.
Summer League.
Oh,
They-
yeah.
They had it in Slovenia. Re-signed Boban, and then they acquired a couple small, like, two-way guys, Ja'Cory McLaughlin, Eugene Omiori, Carlick Jones. Some small names you'll probably never see on the roster. They waived Tyler Bay, which is kind of surprising. They took him in the second round last year, early second round. I think a lot of teams are high on him. So overall, I think the majority of the team is going to look similar to what it did last year. I think they definitely added a excellent shooter in Reggie Bullock, some defense with Frank, but roughly the same team.
Also didn't bring back Josh Richardson, correct?
They did. They traded him. They traded him away
and brought in Moses Brown. Center of the future.
Yep.
Interesting. So, gentlemen, what are our thoughts for the Dallas Mavericks this coming season?
I think they're going to be one of those teams we see with the Blazers all the time. Really solid in the regular season. They're a team that come into the playoffs and it's like, maybe they're a 5-6 seed. They're not one of the premier teams in the West, but no one really wants to see them. They struggle to get out of the first round because they don't have the top level talent outside of Luka. And I think they're going to be another first round exit.
Interesting. Do you think, Taylor, are the Mavericks a candidate to make a splashy move this season in order to get some of that help around Luka to try to go deeper into the playoffs?
They're absolutely a candidate to try and make a move, but like Nick was talking about, not a super flashy offseason because they kind of put their eggs all in one basket trying to get Kyle Lowry, which they were unable to pull off, right? Obviously, a lot of that has to do with Lowry wanting to go to Miami over Dallas. But regardless, Cuban's definitely going to try and prioritize getting talent around Luka. I'm just not sure if he's going to be able to with what they have. They have some decent youth and prospects, I guess. They do still have some picks in their arsenal that they can use. But I just feel like if that caliber player that the Mavericks will be after to add around Luka and Porzingis, if they don't, send Porzingis out in that kind of trade, it's just going to be hard for them to pull that off and with competing teams, So I think they're definitely a candidate to try. I just don't know if they'll be able to pull it off. And that's definitely something I'm going to keep an eye on and agree with Nick's assessment. If they can't bring in that caliber player, I see them being a very similar team to this past season, even if Luka does make another leap or Porzingis looks more healthy.
I think that's fair. They have a couple of young guys on the roster in Josh Green and Tyrell Terry, who I think are going to be important for those guys to make a little bit of a jump to help that team out and also to show that they're good as trade bait. Because Taylor, you mentioned they have some tradable assets, but they still have outstanding picks to the Knicks, which makes trading future firsts a little more difficult. If they want to be in the market to make a move, they need something that other teams find appealing. Josh Green and Tyrell Terry have the possibility to be those things.
Yeah,
I think an underrated difference. I don't know how much coaching really does in the NBA when it boils down to it.
That's a good point.
But
I haven't even mentioned that yet. Yeah.
Rick Carlisle was notorious for not playing young guys. Like both Josh Green and Tyrell Terry got no playing time last season whatsoever.
Yep.
I think in this new regime, maybe that changes, maybe it doesn't, but I think it's an optimistic outlook for young guys in Dallas.
Definitely. Also, Rick Carlisle is notorious with overachieving a bit, right? Taking teams that maybe aren't expected to do as much and getting just a little bit more out of them.
Yep.
It's going to be interesting to see where Dallas kind of falls without him now.
No
I
doubt.
do worry about the Jason, and not to just keep harping on Dallas, but just quickly, you bring up a really good point, Nick. I do worry a little bit about the kid having him at the head. It's either going to be a fantastic thing where him and Luka mesh perfect because they're both super competitive, hotheads in their own right. I don't want to say similar players necessarily, but at least in terms of their competitiveness and athleticism. Also Porzingis, does that kind of scare Porzingis off? Does that not really mesh with his personality? There's just a lot there that could either be great, exactly what this Dallas team needed to kind of get them to, for example, the second round of a playoff series or of the playoffs, or is it just devastating for this team and we kind of see them implode?
It's very interesting.
Like
So
all
the
other kids' teams.
Dallas Mavericks over under for next season, 48.5. Taylor, where do you fall on this one?
48.5. I'm going under just because I think the West is pretty well balanced this season.
Nick, how do you feel about 48.5?
Under.
Under by how much? Well, if you had to put like a 2 or 3 game range on it.
I think
I
they're
put
winning 47.
Okay.
Yeah, I was going to go
45.
45, 46. So I'm under as well. So we're all in agreement with
Cool.
the Dallas Mavericks. Very good. Let's move on to the next team, another Texas team, the Houston Rockets. Last season, 17-55, last place in the Western Conference. And they got rewarded with that by getting the 2nd overall pick in the NBA draft, keeping their draft pick when it had a 48% chance to make its way up north to Oklahoma City Thunder. I'm not bitter. You're bitter. Nick, tell us what all the Rockets did this offseason.
Not a ton outside the draft. Daniel Tice is now a member of the Houston Rockets. Dante Exum re-signed with the team on another multi-year contract, but really it's the draft in which this team improved. Alperen Şengün, Josh Christopher, Jalen Green, Usman Garuba. Like they've got a handful of guys that are going to get minutes this year that are going to be rookies. John Wall, I could technically consider him off the roster at this point.
Sure.
Like he's
Good
saying he's
point.
not going to play. I mean, Kevin Porter Jr. they had last year, but this is going to be his first, full season with the team. So he's a newer face. So overall, the team just got younger. It was kind of an overhaul, similar to what the Thunder did a couple years ago with the Chris Paul trade. Just bring in young talent, get more picks, send out the vets, and see what happens.
Definitely. Also, Kelly Olynyk left that team, right?
Yep.
Ended up in Detroit as well. So still have Christian Wood on that roster. Taylor,
I think he's trade bait.
I would
Yeah,
totally agree with that.
That is going. That might be my first thought since you bring it up, Nick. Like, what direction do the Rockets go? Do they try and just kind of see what they have right in this team with a bunch of youth, plus just like those 1 or 2 veteran players? I guess really now just Christian Wood, because like you mentioned, John Wall won't be playing for the team at all. And I kind of agree with you there. Is it just in their best interest to go ahead and trade away Christian Wood and start from scratch and see what you can get from him? Maybe bring in some more young pieces around the Jalen Greens, the Garubas, the Şengüns, the players Josh Christopher, the players that they drafted. Nick, you got to see, you and Justin got to see those players in Summer League. They all looked really impressive. I guess outside of Garuba, who was playing with the Olympics or playing with Spain in the Olympics. But Josh Green is a very impressive player. I think a lot of just everyone across the league, I was going to say media and scouts, but I think everybody thinks very highly of him. And he showed in Summer League that he is a special player. So I'm curious to see how he develops. And like you said, how these young pieces fit together. They won't necessarily be like competing for a play-in spot, but I think they're going to be a young, fun, exciting team. My question is just like, did they put all their eggs in one basket, getting so many of those young players here in this draft, when maybe they should have been looking ahead to some of these other drafts as well?
I guess fair. I also
really
think their team building style is fascinating. When you look at the team we cover, the Oklahoma City Thunder, we've been able to identify a very clear style of player that they're targeting, which doesn't necessarily have to be crazy athletic, but very skilled, very cerebral, high basketball IQ, can move the ball. We're seeing that over and over, right? We understand now that is the Thunder's MO. That is their type. When you look at Houston, you've got guys like Jalen Green, Kevin Porter Jr., Alperen Şengün. You got guys that, can just fill it up, but maybe lack some of those peripheral pieces that the Thunder like.
True.
The Thunder are going with players that can do, maybe aren't elite at one thing, but they can do everything at a pretty decent level. Where, I mean, like Kevin Porter Jr. can score the shit out of the ball, but as far as like high IQ player and defense, maybe not great. Same thing with Jalen Green. So it's just the contrast in styles. And they're both trying to get to the same place, but their routes to get there are very different. And I think that's fascinating.
Who wants to make a bet?
Oh, we're already firing up the bet machine. I'm intrigued. Keep going.
All right.
Keep going.
I will bet somebody some kind of food. I don't know. We do wings all the time. Let's do a sandwich from your favorite sandwich shop that I think Jalen Green wins Rookie of the Year.
I don't think that's super hot.
I didn't
because
say it was hot.
I know. I could very, very much see that happening. Like
Yeah,
You get the field though.
yeah.
Yeah.
If he
That's what I was
doesn't win it,
thinking, too.
like if he does not win it, I'm not going to be surprised when Cade does not win it. If he doesn't win it, I could very much seeing it be Suggs. Maybe it's
Suggs is
Josh-
another good one.
Maybe it's Josh Giddey. Maybe it's Josh Giddey.
Highly doubtful.
I kind of think Green will be it, but I'll take you up on it. I don't mind. And yeah, we'll do Jersey Mikes. We both love Jersey
I
Mikes.
had that for lunch today.
There you go.
Beautiful. So
I
we'll
love
let's be sure to bring it up in our preseason prediction
Okay.
pods. We'll do because we typically do mainly Thunder bets, and at the end we'll do some league wide bets. So let's bring it up again. We'll put it
Okay.
down.
I like
And,
it.
Who we got
Hopefully
next,
I'll be
Jacob?
enjoying a Philly.
Well, first over under for Houston 26.5.
Oh yeah,
Under.
Good point.
Yeah, I'm going under as well.
That's fair. I think the Thunder at 22-ish, and I expect them in Houston kind of be fairly close. So I'll go ahead and go under.
If John Wall doesn't play
yeah,
for the Rockets,
yeah.
who is the better team between the Rockets and the Thunder?
Ooh.
Rockets.
Rockets are more
You're still going
flashy.
Rockets?
Yeah.
See, I don't know about that. The
I
Rockets
don't
are more
think the
flashy,
Rockets have anybody better than Shea Gilgeous-Alexander.
and I also like the style of play
is
that
that
the
right?
Thunder will play against compared to the Rockets, who don't really know who they are, right?
Yeah, I don't like the way Nick is looking at me right now, though. No one of the Rockets is better than Shea.
Right now, nobody.
But Jalen Green
But
has the
Green
ceiling
has the
to be-
possibility.
Correct.
Yes.
For sure.
Yeah, but
Correct.
like this season, though, Shea is the best player on
Yes.
either of those teams.
I just think of
Right,
like style of play, right? Like I think of like those old Thunder teams, the young up and coming Thunder playing against the
that's
machine
kind of what
that
the
is the
Rockets
Spurs.
remind me of a little bit, right?
Yeah.
exactly against yeah.
Jalen Green will have a 40-point game this year.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
But
I don't doubt
I think
that.
KPJ could have a 40-point game this
He
year.
did last year.
They
Yeah,
could have
true.
a 40-point game in the
Good
same
point.
game for
Yeah.
all I know.
Yeah, right.
You know.
And Rockets will only score 84 points. I mean,
All right, so we're all three going under. Next team, a fascinating team. I'm excited to talk about the Memphis Grizzlies. 38-34 last year, 9th in the West, made the play-in tournament against the Golden State Warriors and won it. They went on to play the Utah Jazz, lost in 5 against Utah in the first round of the NBA playoffs. And Nick, the Grizzlies got a little bit busy this
Dude.
offseason.
I don't even know where to start on what they did. I don't even know who's on the Grizzlies team right now.
They did a lot.
They did a ton, and it was like a move on top of a move. We'll start with the draft, I guess. They took Zaire Williams, who I think all three of us are pretty high on.
Mhm.
They took him very early, similar to the way the Thunder took Josh Giddey pretty early, although I think Giddey would be on the Grizzlies if the Thunder hadn't taken him.
Before you move on from that, they traded up to get Zaire.
Mm-hmm.
Do we think whenever they made that trade that Zaire was their target?
No, I think it was Giddey.
I think it was Giddey as
yeah,
well.
all
Yeah.
reports. Yep, agreed.
They also let go of Justice Winslow. They signed Sean McDermott, Shaq Buchanan, Killian Tilly. They actually recently waived Carson Edwards, who wasn't on the team long enough to really even be considered on the team, but
Mhm.
fascinating in its own right. Daniel Turu, kind of in the same vein, was waived after not being on the team long enough to really be with the team. They had that weird trade with the Lakers for Marc
Mhm.
Gasol and ended up waiving him so he could like
Go back to
retire
Spain.
and go back to Spain, but he retired as a member of the Grizzlies. I don't even know if you call it retirement, but it was just kind of
Yeah.
a strange deal overall.
You gotta
Chris
get the
Dunn-
big one, the Zaire trade. Well, I got the pick for Zaire. The was that 3-team trade for Steve?
Oh yeah, Steven Adams.
Yeah, Steven Adams. That was different than the Patrick Beverly trade, yeah.
Yes.
Oh,
Okay.
They
gosh.
did a lot.
Dude, there's so much.
Yeah, no, I
and
know.
then,
I'm
yeah,
trying to
so
read through how they have them
the
listed.
initial included Eric Bledsoe, and then he was rerouted.
Mm-hmm.
to the wait. Am I crazy in saying the Clippers? I can't even remember this now.
That-
This is great podcasting.
It's convoluted. Yeah. Steven Adams went to Memphis.
Yes.
Memphis lost Jonas Valanciunas,
Mhm, mhm.
Right.
and they lost
New Orleans.
somebody else in that.
That was oh
It's a
goodness.
massive mess, man.
It is. It is. It was Steven Adams, Eric Bledsoe, Wes
10th and
Uwendwu.
40th picks in the 2021
Yes.
draft, and the Lakers 2022nd to the Grizzlies for Valanciunas
Yes.
and Memphis's 17th and 51st picks. But yeah, no, Bledsoe is no longer there. I'm gonna have to do another Google.
Well, then
search.
they also had the Beverly was rerouted and the Jarrett Culver deal,
Oh, that's
which
what
I
it
thought was
was.
an awesome deal. I
Yeah,
think
I
Jarrett
like that.
Culver needs a fresh start and will be really, really good there.
Definitely.
I totally forgot they got Jarrett Culver.
Yeah, I mean they've probably been the most active team.
I was right, Bledsoe. Okay, so Clippers trade. Clippers acquire point guard Eric Bledsoe from the Grizzlies for
Yep.
Rajon Rondo, Patrick Beverly. Rondo
Yeah,
ends up
so-
getting.
Yeah, and
So-
that happened after that initial trade. So it's a ton of stuff.
last summer when the Thunder were making all those trades, this is how other
Yes.
team podcasts were looking at the Thunder like,
Yeah.
who's even on their team right now?
100%. So all of that being said, and we probably didn't even cover all of them. What are our thoughts on Memphis this next season? I'll kick us off on this one.
Please.
I think Memphis is maybe not as good this season as they were last season.
Do you think that's because the roster is not as good, or do you think they had a season last year in which they overperformed with what they had?
They were
70% the first thing you said, and 30% the second thing you said.
Yeah.
I think
Okay.
there's a little bit of overperformance.
Okay.
I think the roster this year is a little worse constructed. I think they took a step back in hopes of taking a leap forward, right? Getting guys like
Yes.
Jarrett Culver, getting guys like Zaire Williams, things like that, kind of going with that younger route. I'm going to be real honest with you guys. I love Steven Adams to death. I think the fit with him in Memphis is poor. Like, he fits the grit and grind mantra for
Mhm.
sure, but I don't think Steven Adams and Ja Morant is a good pairing.
Yeah.
Jonas Valanciunas could space the floor for Ja because Ja cannot shoot well at all. I think Steven Adams maybe helps the defense slightly more than Jonas Valanciunas did, but I think it also makes it harder for Ja to get in the paint. I think teams will be able to defend that 1-5 pick and roll a little bit easier. I think Memphis intentionally took a step backwards to get more young talent, with the hope that acquiring that young talent and being a little worse this year will vault them much farther up the ladder in years to come.
Interesting.
Yeah, I like the way you put that, because I think that's exactly right. Now, the other thing too, right, is they have Jaren Jackson Jr. coming back at full health. Knock on wood.
He has not signed an extension yet.
True. Brandon Clark, I know he wasn't necessarily unhealthy. I think they're just kind of banking on some of those younger players, being healthy, taking a leap, giving them more of a platform, just kind of like when we talked about teams like the Rockets and the Thunder. And then, they did bring in some of these younger guys that they can continue to develop. Like you said, Jacob, gives them a higher ceiling now, even if it lowers their floor for this season.
Well, what's the point of winning this season?
Right, because you're not going to.
Right.
Hey, they also
You're
got
not
Chris
going to.
Dunn, right?
Yeah, but I think they waived
was
him or
rerouted.
traded him again.
Was he?
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly.
I can't remember.
Yeah, wow.
Boston?
That's obviously, yes, it was Boston. And maybe that's how they got Carson Edwards. I don't even remember
I
all
think that might be right, actually.
They have a lot of power forwards
but
too.
look, like-
Xavier Tillman, Jaren Jackson Jr.,
yes,
Kyle
Tillman's
Anderson,
another one.
Brandon Clark.
So I just wonder, especially if Josh shows that he takes maybe a leap this season, and especially with him showing what he was able to do against Golden State in that play-in, right? Now, obviously, not a full 100% Golden State. Regardless, very impressive from him. Are they a candidate to try and trade for the right player to pair alongside Ja? Like, I could see them trying to make a move this offseason as well. But if they don't, I think they're happy with what they have, because, like you guys mentioned, they can fall back on that youth and that youth development.
Mm-hmm. They're an interesting team. They're a really interesting team. They're over under 41 and a half games. I'm pretty firmly
That's
in the
tough.
under on this one. I would put them more at like 36, 37. And I know, again, I'm kind of sticking with this. They took a step back, and I don't like the construction of the team as much this year. to
Yep.
hopefully take a leap forward in years to come with Jarrett Culver, Zaire Williams, etc.
Yep.
I'll take the over.
Okay, interesting.
I think they're kind of like the Knicks last year. They've got a lot of interesting pieces.
Hmm.
Don't know how they fit, but maybe they do.
Yeah. I'm just like thinking through these bottom teams. I know we'll get to the Spurs. I think of the Kings, obviously the Thunder, the Rockets. And like, if I'm putting the Grizzlies above all those teams, then they're flirting with that playing spot again. So they're going to have to be around that 40 win mark if that happens. And so I'm going to go ahead and take the over as well. Maybe
Wow.
just because I'm biased and like Jaw, but I'll go ahead and say the over for now.
This might be one of my bets on our
Yeah.
preseason bet pod, since you guys are both going over.
Yeah.
Next team, a team that I think we can all agree on. We don't know what the hell they're doing. The New Orleans Pelicans, who last season ended 31-41, 11th in the Western Conference. They fire their coach, Stan Van Gundy, after one season. Nick, what all did the Pelicans do this offseason?
So they were obviously part of that ultra confusing Steven Adams trade. So they
Yes.
now have Jonas Valanciunas as their starting center, who I think is better than Steven Adams.
And I think he fits with Zion a lot
I think
better.
he does too. They also re-signed Josh Hart. They dumped Lonzo Ball. They acquired Devontae Graham, which I'm not huge on Graham. He's older. I think a lot of people, when he kind of bursts on the scene, were like, "Oh, this guy's like a great young player," and he was like 26 already.
Mhm.
So I think he's a solid player. That the price they got him at, I thought was excellent for what he's going to give. They also picked up Tomas Satoransky, Garrett Temple through sign and trade. Recently, they picked up former Thunder Zillan Cheatham, Jared Harper as well. Just these camp contract. Who knows if they're even going to be on the team? Herb Jones, the Alabama kid that played with Josh Primo last year, is another one of their draft signings. Trey Murphy, who we saw up close and personal in Thunder League
drafted
in
him.
the summer. Willie Hernan Gomez. So I
I
mean,
like that one.
the biggest difference with them is they pretty much flipped Lonzo Ball for Devontae Graham, and they flipped Steven Adams for Jonas Valanciunas. And so maybe one of those got them incrementally better, one of them made them incrementally worse, and they'll probably be exactly what they were last year.
Who do you guys think
Yeah.
starts for the New Orleans Pelicans on opening night?
So we're going
Obviously, Jonas Valanciunas at the 5, Zion at the 4,
4.
Brandon Ingram at the 3.
right.
I think Devontae Graham's got to
Graham.
start.
Correct.
Okay.
So, and
Is,
look,
is Sato starting at the 1?
No.
I think it's Nah. I really do. They think highly of him. I think, if I remember correctly, again, a lot. I've slept a lot since then, and there's been a lot of NBA news since then. If I remember correctly, there were some pretty reputable reports out there that they made this trade because they do have a lot of faith in Nah, as well as Kira Lewis. Speaking of Alabama kids,
Mhm.
or I guess young men now, so they want to see those young guys get a little more playing time. But Nah, especially being a year older than Kira, I think,
Yeah, I think him or Josh Hart start.
yeah, and I think it's Nah. I really do.
Interesting, because
I like that fit.
They have Tomas Satoransky, they have Kira Lewis, they have Nickeil Alexander-Walker, they have Devontae Graham, they have Josh Hart. They got a lot of guys in their backcourt.
Yep.
Mhm.
They got a lot of guys in their backcourt. I think for them, their offseason was pretty confusing for the most part. I think they just have to bank on those young guys getting better, right? The Nickeil Alexander-Walkers, the Kira Lewis, the Jackson Hayeses. I know they're very high on Trey Murphy III. They've just got to hope that these young guys make a bit of a leap. But it is an interesting roster nonetheless. And obviously the bombshell last week about
Right.
just their GM and the fit with Zion Williamson, and will he try to leave on the first thing out of New Orleans? Lots of questions for that franchise, who has traditionally not been very good. And it's going to be interesting to see how they approach this season with a new head coach as well, right? In Willie Green. How do they move forward, and what does this team look like? I'm excited to kind of see what becomes of them.
I don't care what you tell me the over-under is. I'm taking the under.
Touche.
Yeah, there we
I want to
go.
bring this up to you guys because I think Nick had said something in our group text on yesterday on
I
Saturday.
say a lot of things in the group text.
That is very true. We all do. That is why it's a group text and not public. I had dropped a tweet asking if Thunder fans would trade Dort for Nickeil Alexander-Walker straight up. I was very surprised because 99% of the responses were like either no or hell no. Nick, you asked me in the group text, you said, did you expect something different?
Yeah.
I'm interested. Did you say that because you agree you would not trade Dort for Na, or that's just what you expect from Thunder fans who are attached to the legend of Lou Dort?
That's what I expect from Thunder fans.
Would you do it?
I replied to your tweet, and this is going to be my answer here too, is it depends on the next contract. If Lou Dort gets 20 mil a year and Nickeil gets 12 mil a year, see you, Dort. Nice knowing you. But as it stands today, I think both teams are probably higher on their own guy, and it is a trade that would never happen.
Yeah.
I agree.
And so I all that to say, I was not surprised to see your mentions getting blown up in the way they did.
It's funny, like Nick and I have been talking about this for 4 or 5 months now about Dort's contract and how we feel about his next contract. And I'm saying throw him the bag. It doesn't matter. Nick's saying, well, maybe you should get value for him before he signs a monster deal. But outside of that, we both agree on this point. And I think my response to your tweet, Jacob, was I think of team fit. Obviously, Na's going to fit really well alongside Shea and alongside this offense and this style of play. But I think the loss of Dort is greater than the gain you would have with Na. So the perfect situation here is you don't give up Dort and you're still able to attain Nickeil Alexander-Walker, and he fits in perfect to what this Thunder team is doing. I don't think he brings enough value that you would be losing giving up Dort in that situation.
I think Nickeil Alexander-Walker has a higher ceiling. Is that fair?
Yeah, no, I think that's fair.
Dort is more likely to baseline higher than Nickeil Alexander-Walker, but I think if everything clicks right for Na,
like I'm willing to admit that even,
If everything clicks for Na, I think that's a really, really good player. That's like a Shea-esque player. You know, he can score the piss out of the ball. Interesting. Okay. Well, we know Nick already said he's taking the under. The over-under is at 39.5.
Ooh.
Yikes.
It's a high number.
Nick's like, wait a minute.
Ooh.
Taylor, are you going over or under?
39.5.
I think I've gone under on everyone tonight.
Well, and what was Memphis's? And you don't have to look it back up.
Memphis was 41.5.
41. That's what I was thinking.
So they have the Pelicans 2 games.
I said
worse
over on
than
Memphis. I like the Pelicans right at 40. Which kind of seems like a lot. No, I think about it, but I'm going to stick with my guns and say that they're right under Memphis in the standings. But God.
Nick, I'm with you. I'm taking the under. Oof. I'll take the under with you.
That's bad.
What are the odds that Zion shows up to
overweight and out of shape?
Overweight and out of shape.
Yeah. It's possible. I worry about his health. Like, what happens if Zion, even if he is in shape, just going up for a monster dunk and blows a knee out? Like, that team's in trouble.
Very much so.
Yeah.
Ugh. But we still got one more team. I won't bring
If he said, get me out of here, would you give up every future pick the Thunder owns, including their own, to go get him?
For Zion?
Mm-hmm.
See, I already told you my answer.
It's like 12 future picks?
No.
I don't think so.
I said no.
Interesting.
I'd rather take my chances on one of these players.
Luka? Yeah. Luka, I'd give you every pick.
I'm not
ever.
as high on Zion. Which
Okay.
is kind of crazy to say, but I'm not. I'm with you.
I'd get him and play him at the 5.
Yeah.
Last team, the San Antonio Spurs. Last season, they ended 33-39, 10th in the West. Who did they play in? They played Memphis in their play-in game and lost. Nick, what all did the Spurs do this summer?
A lot of steps back. A lot
of small stuff.
back.
Yeah.
So they lost DeRozan, obviously. got a couple guys back in that deal. They got Al-Farouq Aminu. They got Thad Young. Along the way, they also picked up Jacob's favorite, Zach Collins.
Hey, my guy.
They picked up Bryn Forbes. They signed a couple guys from the draft, Josh Primo, Joe Wieskamp, the Iowa shooter. Also signed Doug McDermott. That was one of their bigger signings. They have a pretty solid contract. But then you look at the flip side. We started with they lost DeMar DeRozan. They also lost Rudy Gay. They lost Trey Lyles. They lost Patty Mills. They lost Taquan Jeffrey. Like, there's a lot of guys that were really core pieces for them last year that are gone. And so, I mean, at this point, you've got two guards that I think are borderline all-star level players that don't have a ceiling that's much higher than that. You've got a center that Sam Presti would love, but I think he's super overrated and is never going to be that good. I just, when you look
about
at
Zach Collins with one leg.
No, Jakob Poeltl.
Oh, Pirtle. Yeah.
It's just like when you look at their young core, they still lack the number one guy.
Mhm.
They may be the only team in the league that does not have a guy that could be a number one player on a championship team.
And you said they're young guys. They're young guys like
They're not even that young, like
aren't
27.
Like DeJounte Murray, 25. Now Keldon Johnson is 21. I think Keldon Johnson is very good.
Yeah.
Lonnie Walker is 22, so still fairly young. Derek White already 27 years old.
I was referring to Derek White and DeJounte Murray. I think those other guys too are good auxiliary pieces, but I don't think any of them have superstar ceilings.
There you go.
I'm like Taylor. With regular words. Yeah.
So what does their starting lineup look like? Is it DeJounte Murray, Lonnie Walker, Keldon Johnson, Thad Young, and Jakob Poeltl?
I think that's it.
Are you playing guys like Doug McDermott?
You bring in McDermott.
Let me reel it back. I do like Devin Vassell a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fair. And I think he
should start.
Yeah. Yeah.
Interesting.
So then you have all those pieces, and we know Pop doesn't necessarily love young players, right? Or I shouldn't say that, but he much more he'd rather kind of throw young players into the fire, see how they do, rather than focus on player development specifically, and focus more on the system. And then I think of like or one thing I do keep thinking about is McDermott. Do you sign him just as like a salary matching piece? And when it comes to a trade, I know that they have shown interest in Ben Simmons. I'm not sure they can get it done, but they have the fun young pieces that aren't too young, like you guys mentioned, that could potentially help the Sixers immediately while being able to get draft picks in return as well. I think of that a potential trade candidate with that McDermott contract, but like outside of that, I'm not sure I even like them more than like the Sacramento Kings this season in the West. So like I see them just as really a step above the Rockets and the Thunder.
Yeah, they are interesting. I do think they have a handful of trade candidates, but the thing is they never make in-season trades ever. They
need to break that mold and go get Ben Simmons.
It's almost like they're just waiting for Pop to retire at this point.
And a Ben Simmons trade for them is interesting because it's like trading 10 dimes for $1.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's like you're going to trade a lot of smaller pieces that don't have much upside for an all-NBA guy. But it's interesting to think about how maybe some of those younger guys, how DeJounte Murray, how I don't know.
Devin White.
Yeah, Derek White.
I think those guys could be good in Philly, though.
Devin Bassett,
I mean, I think there's a chance, for sure. Kind of fitting in around Joel Embiid. So that's interesting. But yeah, but like I mentioned, guys like Thad Young, guys like Al-Farouq Aminu.
They're the salary.
I forgot about Al-Farouq Aminu.
Doug McDermott, like Taylor just mentioned. That's just like a lot of guys that don't. It's just I don't really know what they're doing.
For like lack of a better word, it's clunky, right?
Yeah, and it's kind of just directionless. And I think this is let's try to keep our head above the water until Pop
will
retires.
Kill us if we don't. Yeah,
and once Pop retires, just sell everything and hit rock bottom and restart, kind of like the Thunder did.
So if you were hired as a GM and you were able to pick any team you wanted to start your franchise with the way it sits today, would the Spurs be your very last pick?
Gosh,
I wouldn't say very last.
They would be my very last pick.
Ooh.
they'd be low on the list, but they wouldn't. I don't know if they'd be last.
Like who would you rather
This-
have?
Does get tough because the teams I used to mention in the past, like, are above those, like the Knicks.
But maybe I'm thinking
obviously
too
above.
literally of this. Like I'm also thinking about ownership and stuff.
No, I'm
Yeah.
talking roster. Like
Yeah,
they
okay,
don't
roster.
have it. They don't
Yeah.
have a guy that you look at and you're like, oh, we can build around that guy.
Yeah.
everyone
Orlando
else
does now, and Jalen Suggs. The
Orlando
Knicks
has
obviously
several.
do. They have a solid team. The Kings do, and Halliburton and Fox.
Yep.
And
You know what
like,
would
just
scare me?
A lot of young talent.
What roster would scare me to step into as a new GM and try to make everything work? And this is
Pistons?
maybe an answer you're not thinking of, but the Chicago Bulls.
I
Yeah,
think it'd be fun.
What happens if that doesn't work out and Zach can just walk next year?
yeah.
Like he hasn't signed an extension.
can
He's their
Sure.
unrestricted. You know, like
You can just-
you've
I-
mortgaged your future with trading all those picks to like bring in these pieces this year.
Yeah,
Like if it doesn't fit, the Bulls are in some trouble.
yeah.
But
You
they-
have to blow it up, but I think Nick's point is like you can extract more value for those pieces than what
Yeah.
you could for these San Antonio
In
pieces.
like worst case, if he does walk, I would rather have a young core of Kobe White, Lonzo Ball, Patrick Williams than I would
yeah,
Devin Vassell, DeJounte Murray, and Lonnie Walker.
That's true.
You know,
It's
I
interesting.
just keep trying to think of like some of those teams that we've been talking
But
about.
Spurs also have all of their future
right.
picks.
Yeah,
You know,
That's a
where,
good
where the
point.
Bulls have
That's a good
mortgaged
point.
all of those. So, okay, the San Antonio Spurs over under 29.5.
ooh,
seems
I'm taking the
Kinda
over
spot
this
on.
time. I'm taking the over this time. The Greg Popovich effect. Even though we said their fit in their roster is weird, they do have veterans who know how to win some basketball games.
Yeah.
They got some toughness on that team. They have some shooting on that team. I don't think it's a great Spurs team. I don't think they're making the playoffs, but I think they get over 30 wins.
I'm gonna say the same just because, like, trying
Just
to
because
remember.
I'm intelligent and you love me and you're going to piggyback off of me.
Yes, that.
Thank you, Taylor. I tease.
yeah. I agree. I think that sounds about right. You could say over and under. I'm not going to say you're crazy either way. I think it's
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
a pretty spot on bet.
That was a pretty spot on. Yeah, I like that
Yeah.
line.
It's a good one. It's a
Not
good
to
one.
bet
for
on,
sure.
but I like that line.
yeah,
That was a prediction.
and for
That's a
that
stay
reason,
away.
for that reason, I'm not betting on it.
Exactly.
There's just some of these. I'm like, look, I need to call up Head Lace.
Yes.
Gentlemen, you have now that we've done the Southwest Division, we will do the Pacific Division on Wednesday.
That'll be a fun one.
Sunday, we will do the Northwest Division minus the Thunder because we're going to do the Thunder on their own. And then we have obviously the Thunder preseason pod, the Thunder Bets pod. And then it's basketball time, gentlemen. Like at that point, we will be at regular season hoops.
Can't wait.
I am so
Let's
excited.
go.
So excited. You guys have anything else you want to add in tonight before we hang this one up?
No, but I
What
do
time's
think we-
media day start tomorrow, Nick? I don't even know if I know that.
11.
11. Okay, cool.
And
Yeah.
it'll probably run for quite a while. There's a lot of guys to
Yeah.
get through.
Usually
Yeah.
goes till about 3 or so.
3
Yeah.
4 o'clock. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if it's anything like exit interviews where it's just like blue backdrop and then people just circling in all day long, it gets pretty boring.
Yeah. Well, if
Um,
you're able to rip any audio and you want to drop it on the pod, let us know. And we
I can
Virtually.
rip any and all audio,
audio.
any and
Audio.
all audio that you
My
need.
man's been flying all day. Give him a
Um,
break.
Yeah, my brain is mush. My final word is whenever Mama gets good this year
Mama.
and is a staple of the franchise, I would like to have the original rights to the nickname Mama.
Sounds good.
Mama Mua.
I'm serious. We're gonna make a Mama Dia shirt.
Mama
It's
Dia.
gonna be
There you
awesome.
go.
Awesome. Well, hey, thank you guys so much for joining the Uncontested tonight. If you were on the live show, we appreciate you. We love seeing you guys interact in the comments. Make sure you come back Wednesday night, 9 p.m. Central Time on YouTube, Twitter, and Facebook. Join us again. If you're downloading the podcast version of this, hey, thanks for hitting that download button and checking out our show. If you enjoyed what you heard, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Like I mentioned earlier, we will be doing our Sunday night live stream again next week, our Wednesday night live stream next week. And after that, it's Sunday nights and post game after every single game. So be sure to join us. We're super excited. Glad to have you guys around for the start of another NBA season. Make sure you follow The Uncontested on YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok for all of your OKC basketball needs. We'll be back with you again in a few days. So until then, you guys enjoy Media Day. Take it easy. Stay safe. Enjoy the weather. And we will see you soon. Until then, as always, Thunder up.
Thunder up.